still applicable today. Like most of the theories related to administrative managers, like this guy, Henry Fayol, who came up with 14 principles of management. Those principles are still practiced today, and you find that they are quite relevant. So in many cases, you find that organizations rely a lot on those writers' work. So we want to overview them, maybe look at a few areas that we might have overlooked, and then we check a few questions here and there. So the key areas we want to look at are the various schools of thought that that came about regarding management, because management was one of the challenging things, especially in the advent of Industrial Revolution, whereby most industrialists, managers, producers were looking for the best way to increase workers' productivity. You know, there was that drive, the hunger from producers to meet the demands of customers. You know, goods were highly demanded. There was low productivity. So the key driver at that particular time was how to make workers be better or improve their productivity and increase organizations' chances and objectives. So what I've displayed there is just giving us some history about management, how it developed, and that it is not a new thing. It is something that has been there from time immemorial, like the Egyptians with their pyramid constructions, the Chinese, the Babylonians, all these things we read in history, they could not have been possible without effective or proper management practices. In the modern times, for example, that's where we talk about the schools of thought. Like we have the classical school. They are classicists, those who came up with such school of thought, like the scientific managers. We have behavioral school and management science school. So those areas are very important to look at. So classical schools, we have scientific managers who thought about designing the work, that their focus was mostly on coming up with a system of doing the job, so that it is that is a job that is based on procedures, so that any worker would follow those procedures to achieve the objective or to achieve the work success. One of those scientific managers was Frederick Taylor. So you find him being referred a lot as the father of scientific management. And he was an engineer, worked with an American firm. You can read about him from online sources. So much information you can read, so that you can be able to get what he was saying. But after the end of their experiment and their trial and work, they came up with some principles, or some of which are development of a science of management, that how each task should be performed. That is procedures, how to come up with procedures for doing a particular work. That is what we can be able to apply from the scientific management, from their work. And today you find that there are work procedures or work instructions. We normally call them work instructions, At every office you go to, you'll find that there is a work instruction that the office holder must be able to follow. And then, of course, there is this selection of workers where one is given responsibility based on what they can perform well. This is also a modern thing. Before you get a job, the employer must ensure that you are suitable for that particular work and that they employ only those people with the right qualification. And that is something that is being applied even today. Now, there is also education and development of the worker. This is another thing that they came about with, that for workers to improve their productivity, there must be constant skill improvement, that you enter an organization at an entry-level qualification, and it's also due to your experience, due to on-the-job coaching and learning, apprenticeship, for example, and taking maybe further courses, further studies, you can be able to improve on the skills. So this is also another thing that we can see today being applied. Again, also another thing that they managed to come up with was creating a cohesive work environment. A cohesive work environment where there is friendliness between management and workers, that for success to come in workplace or at workplace, for example, for productivity to increase, then there must be cooperation between management and workers, that management should not be confrontational, that you see your workers as enemies, that you need to put them to where they belong, or like the old-fashioned foreman or supervisor who carries a whip and looking at who is that person who is not working, so that they can whip them or they can punish them. Now, scientific managers realized that it was important that relationship between management and workers be improved, so that success can be achieved in the work environment. Now, most of those scientific managers made those kind of suggestions. You can read about them. Read about Lilly and Gilbreth. These were a couple, and they came up with their own thoughts. You can read through them. We also have Henry Gantt, like the person who developed the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart is work procedures or work. You normally have experienced the use of work chart or work plan. Normally, it was developed by this guy, and it is still being used. Like in your project, you are doing a work plan. There's a work plan. That's the timing of tasks. You time tasks, specific tasks at specific times, of tasks that must be completed before another task is done. So this is something that we have gained from this guy's work. So remember those contributions. Now, there are also limitations as far as those theories or contributions of scientific managers are concerned. And one thing was, one major problem was changing the mindset of workers was not very easy to achieve. Okay, you could change work procedures, you could change design job, redesign job, but of course, redesigning people's mindset is not easy. It's not a one-day thing. It's not like something you go to a laboratory and then make it and then impose it. So you find that people had found it hard to fit into the new type of work procedures. So you ended up with people being fired for not being able to work according to instruction. And another thing was there was a thinking that people would respond to material gain, that you just need to increase their allowances so that they can produce. They ignored the social needs of workers. For example, somebody would be tired. You just give overtime, like maybe overtime of 16 hours. This person need to rest. This person has a family. They need to relate with their family members. So all those things were ignored. Then, of course, there was assumption that to enter workers with increment in pay, then they would also respond with increased productivity. So they were thinking of give them more money and then they will produce more, something that does not always work. And of course, the key things that people look for at workplace are desire for job satisfaction, desire for good working condition, desire for recognition and respect at workplace. Those are a kind of aspects that were overlooked as far as scientific management is concerned. Are we together? Very good. So you need to remember those key areas and many other issues that might come about, like you might be asked about what are the contribution of scientific managers today? How can their contribution be applicable in work environment today? So you need to be able to remember those key issues. There's a question here which says, explain 5 criticisms that are labeled against the use of scientific theory in modern management practice. Explain 5 criticisms that are labeled against the use of scientific theory or in modern management practice. So those criticisms are just the limitations. Thinking that you can just bribe people to produce, thinking that you can only tell them what to do and they will do it. The thought that you just increase their salaries and they reciprocate by increasing their production, such kind of things. Now, let's look at these other theory. These are the category of theory known as the behavioral. No. Before behavioral, let's look at the administrative managers. These are the group that focused on using administrative methods of putting workers to produce, and they came up with a classical organization theory, for example, whereby organization is run by rules and regulations. Organization that is run by administrative methods. These effectively leaders. They want to have full control, to take charge of affairs that were in the organization. So you find that 2 major contributors are Henry Fayol. Henry Fayol thought that organizations are dynamic places where you have technical activity going on, like production. You have commercial activities, buying and selling, or exchange, that is marketing, or financial activities, that is search and use of capital, or security, protection of property and employees, accounting or taking stock of records of financial dealings within the company, that is recording profits and costs and liabilities. And then managerial function, making sure that all these activities are effectively run to make the organization productive. Now, Fayol's interest was mainly in managerial functions, and that is where he focused a lot of his work, and he came up with major functions which today form part of the functions of management, as we have already looked at. And Henry Fayol thought that planning was very important, organizing, commanding, coordination, and controlling. As you can see, some of these functions developed by Fayol are exactly the same ones we are still looking at. The one which is commanding is now what we call directing or providing leadership in organization. So it's the directing function, which is essentially to motivate, communicate, and lead employees to do their work. Coordination, of course, is one of the key functions of organizing. It's a very important aspect. Not organizing, coordination, yeah, it's part of organization. Organization is a very essential part of organization. So he thought that it should be a different function, but essentially for you to be effective, you need to be well organized. And then controlling is also a major function that he came up with. This is monitoring those activities to ensure whether your objectives are achieved, whether you come up with results, and maybe, if need be, introduce corrective measures. This one also, we have looked at it in controlling function as a topic. The only one that he left out is staffing. But of course, staffing, maybe thought that employees were to be commanded, given direction, ordered here and there to do their work. He's coming from the old-fashioned school of thought that you have to use the whip for people to be productive. That's why he's suggesting about the commanding as a function. But today's organizations have realized that you are dealing with human, you are not dealing with machines. These are people that they have their interests. In fact, there's a lot of improvement in labor relations issues over the years. But these guys wrote in the early part of the 20th century. It's just about 100 years ago. And of course, 1916, for example, that's when he was writing these things. So things have changed. Now, Fayol came up with these principles, which I believe you all know about. The key thing that you need to remember is how can these principles be applied today? And if you can see, you realize that all the principles are actually applicable, like division of labor. Work is normally divided among workers based on specialization. You qualify, or you do what you are best qualified for. Like, let's say there's a restaurant in operation, or a hotel facility, for example. You'll find that this hotel facility, not everyone will be doing the same work. Hotel is not just accommodation, the room service and what have you. Hotels also do offer catering services. For example, you may have a restaurant, you may have a kitchen. So you find that someone is qualified as a chef, for example, may not necessarily understand housekeeping duties, for example, may not understand management issues. So you find that there must be work divided according to functional specialization. So that's why you'll find in hotel, you find procurement officers. They are responsible for bringing materials into the hotel. You have housekeepers. They are responsible for making the room neat and habitable. There are chefs and waiters, and they are responsible for ensuring that the restaurant functions effectively. There are accounting or finance department responsible for ensuring there is capital for investment here and there. Accounting department responsible for maintaining cost and income, such kind of things. And marketing responsible for ensuring that these businesses reach out. So this is very important today. Another key issue, authority and responsibility, that is leadership, discipline. Workers need to respect rules, unity. Employees have to receive command from one supervisor. This is very important. For organization to function effectively, each and every employee must have one supervisor or one person giving the direction. And all this, you can be able to look at them. They are very important in today's management. Like this last one, the spirit of cooperation, that companies today realize that it is important for people to work as a team so that they can be effective and productive. So those are the key areas you need to look at. I want us to also at these thoughts given by bureaucratic theory that Max Weber came up. He suggested that managers should strive to divide labor, or labor should be issued in terms of specialization, that positions should be dished out, not just dished out anyhow, but given based on skill, based on knowledge, based on specialization. And then, of course, also very important, there should be a clear chain of command. That is, this hierarchy that whereby authority and power flow from the top to bottom in a chain of command. And therefore, you know whom to report to, and you do not break the protocol. Very important. Then also, of course, impersonal conduct. That is, it's a management which is not based on personalities. It is based on rules, based on regulations. Now, the social distancing that we have today started with Max Weber. It's not a new thing. He suggested that there should be a social distance between subordinates and managers, that there's that invisible barrier that is normally present. You don't just bump onto your managers and as if they are just your friend. That is a bureaucratic behavior. In fact, this bureaucracy is what now we have through COVID today. But essentially, he made those suggestions. But of course, also he was emphasizing on technical expertise, that people need to focus on specific areas of qualification. And then the legal authority and power, that power should be given based on qualification or legal authority. So all these suggestions put in place by Weber was meant to curtail errant managers who wanted to take law into their own hands or to do things arbitrarily. So that's why he made those kind of suggestions. Now, you might be asked about this Max Weber, whether some of the contributions, some of the benefits, and how his contribution is helping to run organization today. Next, what we want to look at is the behavioral school of management, or the behavioral school of management. There are various contributors that made suggestion, and their focus was on the human element of management. Now, the classicalists, for example, the scientific managers were focused on work design. Administrative managers were focused on rules and regulations, principles, policies here and there. Now, behavioral school of thinkers focused on the human elements, that you need to be able to view your staff, your workers, as human beings, and focus on them. So you find that there's this Mary Parker Follett came up with, I want you to read through them and find out what they were saying. Chester Bernard and Hugo Munsterberg and others. You find out what they were writing about behavioral school. Elton Mayo, he did a lot of work. In fact, he did a very well famous experiment about human relation. And today, his contribution has really shaped the human relation movement and human relation, and has made human relation a discipline in in training institutions and in organization, and it has made it become a very important focus. So I want you to go through the Hawthorne experiments. You can be able to go online and find out about the work of Elton Mayo, so that you place in a good state. Now, so there is contribution, especially for Elton Mayo, was he highlighted a few things that are very important. Those things that are key or important was a focus on human factor, that you need to give people, pay attention to people, pay attention to people's needs, pay attention to their aspirations, view them as human beings, not as machines. And then you can be able to product. That's why today serious organizations treat very well their employees. And you find that, like, for example, you work for international organization like the UN, the way they treat their workers is just absolutely fabulous. And this is the time that led to the improvement of employees' welfare, that the organizations began to realize that these people are not tools to be used. They are not means to be manipulated. They are not robots to be programmed. But these are people who have a life to lead. They feel pain like any other. They are not animals. They were trying to drive people like they would drive bulls on a plow, for example, or donkeys carrying burdens, or camels walking in the dry desert, But they realize that it is important to focus on the welfare of employees. So that's how things develop. It's also a period that led to labor unions coming up, and those labor unions started fighting for the workers' condition and workers' welfare. And then, of course, management style to be more of employee focused on material focus. Of course, there are challenges that relate to the theory of the Biot theory. I want you to look at those challenges. These are scientific, these are human relation managers, or the behavioral theories. They thought that focusing on human element would be one best way of managing organization. But they also did the same mistake. They focus on one best way. You cannot focus on one best way. You need a combination of different ways. As much as you apply issues to do with job design, you put in place policies, and also you have employee or welfare focus. You need to have that combination so that you achieve effectiveness. But when you focus on one area, then you will neglect other areas. So that is one major mistake that the behavioral theorists also did. So look at those key issues, and you can be able to take a note of. The last area that we want to look at is quantitative school of management. This is where management science is. This is mostly the modern style of management, which essentially look at various management systems that have been put in place. The quantitative management came up with the management science, operation management, and information management information systems that today have been used a lot. Like management information, this is what has taken away the filing system. You find that you collect data from the environment, put them in data bank, and then use them for making decisions. So these are modern approaches to management, and you need to go through them. Like the modern management theories like contingency approach to management. This is where you make decision based on the situation that is at hand. The prevailing situation inspires that manager to be able to make decisions. Like right now with the COVID pandemic here with us, you may not have policies developed to deal with it, but because you have that leadership capability, you can be able to make choices and decisions based on the situation. The system theory, that is where we come up with management systems, among others. So read through them, refer to other materials that may be online. And in case I've ever sent you any materials related to that, you can also be able to look at them. Are we together? Good. Now, I want us to look at a few questions related to this area. I want us to look at a few questions related to this area, and maybe other questions which may not be related, but closely related to evolution of management thought. Let me see who is here. Alice, good morning. So is there any question, any issue, any concern regarding this particular area? Any issue, any concern, any? You can put it on public portal, or you can just ask any issue, concern. Is there any question, any issue? Question, issue? Put it down, put it down, put it down on public portal. Any question? How was the cut? Those who did the cut, it was done by only a few people, eh? Most people boycotted the cut, eh? Let me check. Where was it? The chapter. The cut was done by only 7 people. 7 people, eh? Let me see. Review. Did we revise it? Just ask, let me ask, did we do a revision on it? Monica, did we do a revision on this guy? Did you look at it? No, we haven't checked on it. Okay, right. Let's look at it. Let's look at some of the questions and see where. But you've seen the result, okay? I believe you have checked the results. Only 9 questions, eh? Now, we're asking. I don't know whether it's visible from your side, but I believe it. So, state any 4 rules that cover ordinary ethical problem. Rules that cover ordinary ethical problem. Let me check how to make it a little bit larger. Hi. Can someone give us the answers for that? Let me hear your contributions by writing on the public chat. By writing on the public chat, okay? Can you do a write-up on the public chat? Let me see your contributions on the public chat, okay? State any 4 rules that cover ordinary ethical problems we live with on a daily basis, eh? 4 rules. Any 4 rules that cover ordinary ethical problem that we live with on a daily basis. This is a question from the emerging trends, all right? No, not emerging, yeah, I think emerging trends, yeah. These are rules that we said, like keeping promises. When you promise someone a thing, you fulfill it. Assisting people. When someone is in need of us, you assist them. Like at workplace, they need to be helped in one area or another. You come through and assist them. Avoiding violence. Or trying to hurt people. So you can be able to avoid those kind of things. Respect of persons and their property. Those kind of issues, very important. So these are the answers that we ought to put in place. Are we together? Keeping promise, aiding others, respect of persons, respect of property, those kind of things. They are very essential. Let's look at the next question. We're going to look at past paper, but let's first of all look at this. Outline 2 cons of management by results. These are 2 disadvantages of management by objective. Management by result is management by objectives. So what are the disadvantages? Disadvantages of management by objectives. What are those disadvantages? Top managers become relaxed or reluctant because they know that everyone else is actively participating. There is too much focus on short-term goals, which makes it irrelevant. Company cannot just exist by just being focused on short-term goals only. You need to have